Raleigh City Center Radio. It is episode 355, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. A bunch to talk about. I can't waste too much time. But first, yes, today is March 26th. Why is that important? Well, for me, it's very important. It is my niece's birthday, so happy birthday, Cameron. I highly doubt she will be listening to this, but I'm saying it nonetheless. Maybe she'll discover this sometime in the future. But I hope she has an amazing birthday. And so I'm excited to speak with her later. Another note, I am recording this in a abnormal way. I'm not by my normal equipment, so the sound may not be as good as it normally is, so I apologize. But usually when I do this version, it turns out to be okay. But I appreciate you all bearing with me. So, why am I recording this way? Why is there no episode on Monday? Well, as I mentioned last week, I was debating going to the NCAA tournament in Raleigh. They were hosting first and second round games, on the men's side of things. And my alma mater, the University of Connecticut, was there. And I was excited about that prospect, and I decided to go. I haven't seen them play in person since last April when they won their second straight national championship out in Phoenix, which was an incredible experience. And this was a pretty cool experience, too, even though it was just the first and second round, unlike the Final Four and national championship. They won their first game, which was on Friday, which meant I got to stay in the lovely city of Raleigh until Sunday at least, when they would be playing their second game. Unfortunately, they lost that game. It was just a heartbreaking defeat at the hands of the Florida Gators, who are a number one seed. But super proud of the guys. They fought so hard, and hey, they won 2 national championships in a row. A three-peat would have been incredible, but so difficult to do. So, couldn't be too upset, but it was a bummer because they fought hard and, it looked like they might have it. But I just want to give a shout out to the city of Raleigh. It was cool seeing, a bunch of March Madness stuff all around. It's a beautiful and clean city, at least the areas I was in. I stayed in downtown. They have this really cool, city park area, with restaurants and businesses and sculptures and art and all this other great stuff, and just really enjoyed it. Everybody was super nice, whether it was people at the hotel, at the arena, strangers, people at the game. If you like college basketball, there's nothing better than the tournament and seeing it in person, especially when you can see multiple games, because, there's usually at least 2 games per session, 4 games per day in these early rounds. So you get to see people from all different fan bases. Everyone's excited because it's tournament time. Everyone's hoping their team's going to win. And it's just a really cool experience to be around all these people. And yeah, it's a sports game. You're going to have some people who may be a little annoying or whatever. But by and large, I thought the crowds were incredible. A nice mix, again, from several different teams. Duke fans were there. Norfolk State fans were incredible. There was also Oklahoma, Florida, as I mentioned, and Baylor as well. So it was just really cool to just see these people having fun, enjoying their weekend, and just being really excited. Just a really unique and fun experience. The hotel I stayed in, I was very happy with as well. And again, just everything was really, really great. I stopped at a local coffee shop one day called Sir Walter's. Imagining it must be named after Sir Walter Raleigh, of course, the namesake for the city, which was this cool little spot right near my hotel. They had all different sorts of pastries and coffees, of course, and other drinks. They also had a bar, so they were open throughout the day. So people were in there. When I went, it was approaching noon, I think. I had to sleep in after Friday night's game because I didn't get back to the hotel till after midnight with UConn playing late. There was already a couple people posted up watching games there. So, usually with coffee shops, you're not used to having a counter to order coffee and then on the other side a bar. So it seemed like it would be a fun place, whatever you decided you wanted to do. But got my coffee, which was one of their signature drinks, I guess. It's listed, they have like 5 or 6 different things instead of you ordering like a specific, I want a latte with this and this. You could just be like, I want, I forget what mine was called, but it was a 6 espresso drink, which I figured, hey, if this is like one of their signature drinks, 6 espresso shots, that's not going to be that big of a deal. Well, I was losing my mind by, a couple hours later. It was a heck of a lot of caffeine. And maybe it was a little bit too much, even for me, someone who really enjoys espresso and caffeine in general. So that was a little bit of a bummer, but, everything was fine. Also got to stop at Buc-ee's, both on the way there and on the way back. You all are probably familiar with it. It's always fun to stop there, pick up some of their signature kind of snacks and things. And anyway, just a great weekend. I really enjoyed it. Didn't realize that I needed maybe to just get away from Charleston. Everything's fine, but, it's just sometimes it kind of clears your head, gets you out of your routine. And then obviously I just had a ton of fun, being in the middle of everything. And the arena there used to be called the PNC Arena. It's like Lenovo or something now arena. I don't know what that company is, but it's the home of the Carolina Hurricanes. Also NC State basketball plays there, and their football stadium's right across the street. It's a really nice arena. I was really impressed. Like, no matter what level you were on, the hundreds, the 200s, the 300s, it was just a really nice venue with lots of cool amenities, and yeah, just an amazing time. So, don't need to continue talking about a trip that you all weren't on, but I wanted to make sure I said, hey, Raleigh I was really impressed. I enjoyed the whole experience. I really liked the parts of the city I saw. Like I said, very clean, very walkable, and everybody was super nice. So if you have a chance or haven't been there in a while, head up onto Raleigh. It was a nice, quick little trip up there too. The drive wasn't too bad. So anyway, without further delay, let's get into the latest news. So we talked about Nancy Mace and how she was not going to attend this town hall that a grassroots organization was putting together, and they invited her to show up, as a lot of people want to talk to their representative about different things that have been going on the national level, specifically as it relates to Elon Musk and this Doge team. Some of the cuts they're making, and what authority that they have or don't have, et cetera, et cetera. And you may remember that Mace turned it down, and much like many other representatives and other Congress people across the country are doing, they're just not speaking to constituents because they don't want to get yelled at. But in her statement where she said she wasn't going to attend, she made up some lies about how it's a bunch of activists or people who don't even live in this area that are not her constituents, or calling her phone lines. Maybe that part's true, but there are many constituents of hers that would love to have a town hall and voice their concerns to her. But in addition to all that stuff, she also said that, quote, "We're staying away. We're," in that she's talking about her staff. But anyway, quote, "We're staying away because it's not safe, and we refuse to be bullied by individuals who are threatening me, my employees, my constituents, and my family," end quote. Now, we've heard this from Nancy Mace many times about how she feels unsafe, how she gets attacked. She's always a victim, et cetera, which is not to say that there aren't legitimate concerns or that she hasn't been a victim of certain things here and there, but this is a common refrain we hear from her. So, I no doubt in my mind, 100%, she has, been the target of, really nasty messages online, to her phone lines. I'm sure she's gotten threats. I mean, unfortunately, this is what happens with politicians. So I'm definitely not saying that stuff doesn't happen. But what I will say is she, seems to be concerned about this. She always talks about being a protector of women as well and wants women to be safe. So you think she would, use a little decorum online when interacting with whether they're constituents or not. You would think she wouldn't want to, quote, punch down on someone who isn't, say, a politician or in the national spotlight, and certainly wouldn't do something to put people in danger. Well, you would be wrong. I've talked in the past about, I'm not going to get into the whole details of it, but you may remember she was talking about this study at MUSC as it related to trans children, and she misrepresented this study and what exactly was happening, which led to threats going into MUSC. Nothing substantial, at least as far that has come out in the news, as far as like legitimate threats. And so she's done stuff like that before. That's not okay, but it is an institution versus an individual person that she, was putting in harm's way, even if it really wasn't harm's way. But we have like a specific story. A 23-year-old teacher says she's received numerous death threats after she was targeted on social media by Representative Mace. And you probably already know why this person was targeted. It's because she is transgender. This trans woman, as I said, is a 23-year-old teacher. She posts on her personal account, whatever, just like anybody else. But in a series of posts across not only her official, congressional Twitter account, but also her personal account on Twitter, aka X, Mace just put her in harm's way by taking this random person, again, not a public figure, and making her a target. It's one thing for Mace to attack the one trans woman in Congress, which she's done over and over. And as I mentioned before, and that's certainly not okay, but she does it all the time on her social media accounts where she attacks the trans community in general. And we've talked about how that is dangerous rhetoric. But this is the first time that we are having one specific individual being targeted, and then the fallout that happens from that. So this trans teacher, her name is Saber. And she had posted on her own personal account. She is not an influencer even. Not that that would make it okay. But basically she had put a caption on a photo of herself that said, "God, I love estrogen." Mace, on her official government account, wrote, "Estrogen doesn't love you," and she retweeted it. Okay, whatever. Less than 15 minutes later, Mace then reposted Saber's photos again, but this time on her personal account. She tagged Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr., saying, "Can we get RFK on this? No way this is healthy." In addition to that, she responded to several followers over the next hour who were making comments, and she continued to demean this woman and continue her attacks on her. Now, according to Saber, she has received a bunch of doxing attempts. Doxing is when people on the internet try to put out someone's personal information, like their address, phone number, things like that. And also, she received death threats. And no surprise, in addition to that, her comments on her social media have been flooded with transphobic comments, which, of course, isn't okay, but doesn't rise to the level of death threats and things. Now, in addition to Mace putting this out, other, people who may have substantial followers on social media, including someone who runs an account called Gays Against Groomers, amplified this whole thing. And it led directly, there's just no doubt about it. This Mace and this Gays Against Groomers account, these two huge accounts that are, we're sharing these, negative posts, these demeaning posts, and it directly led to these threats. Now, again, it's never okay to attack any community. Mace, as I said, has done this many times. She's using a transphobic slur, not only on her Twitter accounts and Facebook and all that. She's also used it during a committee hearing in Congress multiple times, despite being asked not to do it because it's a slur. She continually rails against trans people online, and she's using this hashtag hold the line in reference to it. Claims it's she's trying to protect women, which obviously isn't true, because here we are, a woman. Now, granted, Mace wouldn't agree that Saber is a woman, so that's why this is happening, of course, but she's certainly not protecting this woman. She's also gone after the only trans member of Congress, Representative Sarah McBride. She's dead named her numerous times on social media. And then, of course, you might remember Mace saying that she was physically accosted by a trans rights activist who shook her hand a little too hard, and then she was in a sling the next day. There's been people who say her version of that is false. I haven't seen it. I have no idea if this person did indeed physically harm Mace or not. But the point is, this is a pattern of going after trans people or activists in any number of ways. But the biggest difference this time is that she directly went after an individual. And unlike when she goes after Representative Sarah McBride, this is someone who is not a public figure, let alone in politics. Like, this isn't an influencer. And again, not that targeting an influencer is right, but it's different if someone is putting themselves out there publicly in a way that isn't just an everyday person who, has a Twitter, Instagram, TikTok account, whatever. Like, why is a sitting member of Congress finding a random person, sharing their message solely in an attempt to get likes and interaction, to demean this person, and then put them in harm's way? That's what I referenced with punching down. This isn't a person who has a platform or the resources like Representative Mace does. This is wildly inappropriate. And if she's targeting this person, that means she could target anybody, period. That means constituents, non-constituents. It could be you, it could be me. Granted, if she's attacking Holy City Center, that's different, of course, because it's a public account, it's a media thing. But you get what I'm saying. Like, any individual, she could just and this wasn't even, that's the other thing to this Saber person, she wasn't even talking to Mace. It wasn't like she was attacking Mace or responding to one of Mace's posts. Mace just found this on her own. It's just another wildly inappropriate action by Representative Mace, and it's sad and disgusting, and it just shows how low politics are in general in this country. Not that that's any surprise, but how she's willing to stoop to this sort of level. In any event, I wanted to point that out because regardless of what people may think about any number of issues involving trans people, I would hope we could all agree that this type of behavior is not okay. You don't find a random person who isn't even going after you. And again, not that that would necessarily make it right, depending on how it's handled, but just randomly finding just some person, just a random person, fighting their account, making a demeaning and disgusting comment about them for likes, for attention. And this isn't even the first time she's done it. There's been other instances where she's shared posts from trans people and has made demeaning or rude comments to them. And again, she's used transphobic slurs or just slurs, regarding that community. I mean, it's just abhorrent behavior. And I think we should all call it out and agree that regardless of where you stand, you shouldn't be picking out a random person and putting them in harm's way like this. Now, I'm not saying that her intent was to get people to go after this person, but, I mean, how could you not see this coming? Especially someone who claims that they are constantly getting death threats, that they are constantly afraid or under attack or whatever. How could you not know what your action was going to do to this person who, again, wasn't even talking to you, wasn't bothering you, wasn't harassing you? They were just living their life, posting on their personal account, and you have to drag them into this for no reason whatsoever except you needed attention. Moving on. Another one of our culture war issues of the day, moving from trans people to DEI. There's a House Bill 3927 that recently advanced. It's a watered-down version of a previous anti-DEI bill. So, of course, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's this bill that wanted to limit those types of initiatives in South Carolina. It has moved to the South Carolina House floor after members removed a ban on state contracts with companies that have DEI programs. So this legislation is moving forward. The amended bill, there was a stricter bill that was out there, but it was clear it was not going to pass. This amended bill, which will, again, soon face debate on the House floor, says that government agencies can't have an office named with the words that form the DEI acronym and can't require diversity training or statements. This would cover admissions and organizations at public universities, state agencies, and, somewhat sort of state agencies like Palmetto Railways and the South Carolina Lottery Commission and any similar agencies that have diversity initiatives. Under the proposal, state entities could not require DEI training, or have DEI offices. Now, the people who support it says that the bill's intent is to focus on individual merit. That's the whole talk now is everything's merit-based. And so they're claiming that they're looking for merit over a group identity. They say no differential treatment can be given based on race or gender, among other orientations as well, of course, for anything related to admissions processes. The Attorney General office would be tasked with enforcing this law and could bring legal action if necessary. However, at this point, the bill has no penalties listed in the text, so what exactly that means, we don't know at this point. There would be some sort of reporting system for complaints made, involving DEI at state agencies. It would be up to the agency that received the complaint to send it to the Department of Administration and then to the House Speaker and Senate President's offices, which could then be brought to the Attorney General. Those opposed to this bill said it was an unnecessary attack that would have unintended consequences for everyone. So if you would like to let your representative know what you think about House Bill 3927, be sure to let them know. Again, it's coming up for debate soon. And this is not a topic that's going to be going away. Even if this gets shut down, there'll be other attempts. So keep an eye on that. It's been a while since we talked about Boeing, and you may remember that tragic case of a whistleblower, former employee of Boeing, who took his own life here in Charleston. Well, the estate of that late Boeing quality manager, whose name was John Barnett, is suing Boeing, alleging its actions after Barnett had raised safety issues while working on the North Charleston-based 787 program helped drive him to suicide. The wrongful death complaint was filed in U.S. District Court back on March 19th, which is just about a year after the 62-year-old aerospace industry veteran died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the parking lot of a Charleston hotel. Barnett, who was not living in the area at the time, which is why he was at that hotel, had traveled here for depositions in a 2017 whistleblower case that he filed against Boeing, which, of course, then gained nationwide attention, actually probably worldwide attention, especially since there were other issues going on with Boeing planes at the time. He, meaning Barnett, had alleged that Boeing once retaliated against him for raising concerns about the safety of the 787 Dreamliner jets that are built here in North Charleston. His family's attorney said in a court filing that Barnett was pressured not to document defects and that management then, quote, embarked on a concerted campaign of harassment, abuse, and intimidation intended to discourage, discredit, and humiliate him until he would either give up or be discredited, end quote. The attorneys also added that Barnett was later diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, panic attacks, and anxiety. So far, Boeing has not filed a response to the lawsuit, and there's been no court date that's been scheduled. Just for a little bit more background, Barnett worked for Boeing for more than 32 years, so not like a new employee. So he knew how things were supposed to run and was well versed in, how this company operated. He started as a he worked for the company for 32 years. And then for about 7 years, he was here in North Charleston as a, quote, first level quality manager, end quote. He retired in March of 2017, which was 2 months after he filed his whistleblower case, and then he ultimately moved back to Louisiana, where he is from. Among the damages that Barnett's family is seeking are unspecified back pay and a decade's worth of front pay, lost bonuses, lost health and life insurance, loss of retirement funds, attorney's fees, compensation for emotional distress, and mental anguish and other financial losses. So I'll be sure to update you when that lawsuit, if it does end up in court or if it gets settled, I'll be sure to pass that information along. And finally, last story, an update on an incident that happened in Mount Pleasant. A police officer from Mount Pleasant who was injured during an incident about a week ago, he has been released from the hospital. The officer, who has not been identified, was treated for stabbing wounds at MUSC in downtown Charleston. Law enforcement, how this all happened, Mount Pleasant police officers responded to a report of indecent exposure on 651 Johnny Dodds Boulevard around 5:15 p.m. last Tuesday. They ultimately encountered an individual matching the suspect's description, which, in decent exposure, it might be really easy to find that person if that incident is still occurring. But in any event, witnesses at the scene said that they saw the suspect stab the officer, which led to the officer to fire their gun in response, and ultimately the suspect was shot. Officials said at the time of the incident that both individuals were treated for non-life-threatening injuries and were taken to a nearby hospital. As I said, we now know the police officer has been released. No updates on the suspect. But it appears they are, if they're not still at MUSC, they've been released. But we'll, again, if there's more information, I'll be sure to let you know. But good news that the officer is out of the hospital and recovering. Just like any other officer-involved shooting, SLED will investigate the incident, and the police officer will be on paid leave as that investigation goes on. And that'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Soundsystem for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. And thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every show. Hope you have a great rest of your week. I can't wait to be back with you again. I'll see you on Friday, but until then, good night and good luck.